Hey, I think we've got sound. Okay, I'm not lip syncing anymore. Yes? No? No sound, no sound. Well, I think we have sound, but it takes, I'm on a delay, so I will just wait in the hope that you've got that. Yes? No? I'm going to have a drink. That's it! Yay! Oh dear. Well, I do apologise. Now, let's just get straight into it. And the babble I was talking about, I'll tell you about the babble after. That's technology for you. I wouldn't have a clue. I don't know what happened. It switched off my microphone. There you go. Anyway, hello everybody. How are you all? I did say hello to you all, but you know, bit of lip syncing and so on. Anyway, this is the necklace we're going to make tonight, but I'm going to use some different beads to show you how flexible it can be. Okay, so what we're going to need is you're going to need some beading thread, which is, I'm going to use Nymo, but you can use your Miyuki, Fireline, etc. Just to say as well, I have a fan on by the side of me. Microphone is by the other side. If it interferes with the sound, please do let me know. Cut probably about 1.5 to 2 meters of thread. Wax your thread if you've got wax, which really helps with... I was having a really good old chat to myself, Kim. Nothing new there. I'm used to that at home. I really am. So I would say have some 3/4mm beads, either round. You could use, like I've got, which are 3x4mm rondelles. Rondelles just refers to the shape, which is kind of where they're a bit squished. They're crystals that are normally a bit wider, sometimes they're the same size, but it's rondelles is just purely a term to describe the shape of the beads. Now these are glass pearls, 4mm, and that refers to the size. Those would be fine and dandy. The ones we're going to use tonight are 4mm. Now, I was having a chat with other Frances Watkins earlier, and she made a really good point, which is the fact that I'm asking you, for example, what would you like to see more of in the thread? Would you like to see bicones, Miyuki? And really, that's not a good assumption to make, is that you might be using them all the time, but you might not know what they're actually called. So, which I think is a really good suggestion. So apologies in advance. Some of you will know, others of you won't. And sometimes people are frightened to ask. These are bicones, and when we look up close, bicones refers to the shape. They're that way at the top and they're that way at the bottom. So they are kind of pointed both ends, and they're pointed both ends, but they're also kind of round, which is a bit strange way to say it. But anyway, that's the term that's used. You're going to need your ordinary clasp. I'm using a lobster clasp, crimp beads, which we use in general beading. I'm using some jump rings and some culottes. So let's go and zoom in on the camera. How are you all today? What have you all been up to today? It's pretty intense heat, isn't it, to really sit outside in. I've actually been sat with the lovely other Frances, another lovely Frances, and we have been sat stringing beads and chatting and enjoying the day, and our kids have been happily hanging out together. We have to call it hanging out now, don't we, because they're too old to say playing. I've got 10mm pearls and haven't a clue what to do with them. Well, Elaine, you might be able to do this with them. You know, give it a go. Right, so what we're going to start off first of all by doing is size 10 beading needle, and we're going to thread that. A size 10 beading needle basically refers to the size of it with the hole, and it means it fit into the beads that we're using. So first of all, we actually want to pop on our culottes. So we're going to pop a crimp bead, just an ordinary crimp bead, in the centre of our thread. Now we're not going to use 2 needles throughout, but I am going to use 2 needles at the start. And I'm also going to just zoom in a little bit more. Sorry about my hand in the way. Right, we will zoom out in a bit. So we've got crimp bead on, place it in the middle of your thread, and the other end I've got 2 beading needles. Okay, so if you've never seen a culotte, this is a culotte. The ones I like to use have got a pre-formed hole. I'm not so keen on the others because I found that I've lost a lot of jewellery sort of falling apart. It's got a hole in the bottom part. Okay, so what we're going to do is open it. They remind me of clamshells. So we're actually going to, either one by one or 2 needles at a time, I'm actually going to push my needles through so that that crimp bead sits in the middle. Alright, so just to recap on what we've done, if you're feeling really confused, we've cut a length of about 1.5 metre thread. We have strung a needle at either end of your thread. Pop a crimp bead on, the crimp bead sits in the middle, and then thread both needles up through the culotte so your crimp bead sits inside. So you're going to go down the culotte or up the culotte, whichever way you look at it, and then you've got a full length of thread. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Do let me know if it doesn't. So you're ready to start. Now you can close that up. You don't even need to crimp it if you don't want to, but just for extra security I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to close this up with my pliers. So let's just have a little look at what you've Kim sat having her nails done and gossiping for 3 hours. Sounds perfect. Nikki, however, had a root canal. That does not sound quite so perfect. I hope you're okay, Nikki. Yeah. Hello, Lydia. Good to see you. Or hear you. Got sound. Good. Right, okay, so I'm going to use these bicones. Now, hopefully, you can see what shape they are. So, if you ever wondered what they're just called bicones. Okay? So these are obviously on a temporary strand. And I'm just going to take the necklace off to show you what we're going to be doing, if I can get it off. Now, this is the culotte at the end, and then what we're going to do is we're going to thread single beads until we get further down here. Okay, and how far down is absolutely up to you. Now you can either bring both needles together and thread it through the bicones, which is what I'm going to do. Super quick. Or you can do it one by one. Oh, you're all having some, right, where are we? Treatments today, and had an eye scan. Oh, that sounds painful. I remember going up with my son. He had iritis in his eyes some years ago, and they thought he had conjunctivitis, and it was exceedingly painful for him and created some blindness in his eye as well temporarily. So yeah, I'm okay now. The anaesthetic is wearing off. Oh, anaesthetic's quite heavy, isn't it? It doesn't make you feel great always, does it? Yes, I agree with you, Anne. I'm not keen either on anything to do with eyes. Oh, and Elaine's had breast screening for me. Oh, do you know what, Elaine? I had my first one done last year, and oh, I'm just going to take that off because I've got a broken one there. If you do get a broken one or anything like that, it's probably best to take your needles off. And I had no idea that they push and shove in all sorts of directions. You wonder how they get you. Oh, I know it's for a good purpose, but it's not the most comfortable, is it? Of course, it's not really the thing that women talk about, is it? Except for me. I think it's good to talk about things like that, though. At least people know what to expect then, don't they? But the most important thing is the reasons why they do it. Right, so obviously the longer you do this, the less weaving you actually need. Now let's just compare it to the other one. A few more there. Yeah, it's I'm totally with you on that one. It's really so uncomfortable. You think, nah, you're never gonna, nah, really? But yeah. Anyway, the pleasures that us women have to have test-wise, but it's all for good purpose, isn't it? Right, okay, so let's just shimmy that down. So this is, oh, I have got a tape measure. Right, there we go. Do you know, I'm going to add a little bit more on this so that you haven't got to watch me doing quite as much weaving. But does it all look okay so far? Now, when I was babbling earlier on, I was actually babbling and saying, how many of you watched our gorgeous ladies last night on our Beaders of Beads by Vachil? I think they did an amazing job. The first live they've ever done, and there was lots of laughter and informative stuff. Absolutely brilliant. So I was actually talking about that and the fact that whilst I was not meant to be in it, I couldn't hear a thing, which is why I wasn't in it. So sorry, sidetracking. You want the just plain length to be between 3 and 4 inches. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to tie these two together, and I'm going to bank one needle and just use the other. Okay, so I'm literally getting myself in a right little pickle. Just going through that twice, and I am going to pull that and do it again. But if you didn't manage to log on last night, if you go into the group, you can still watch it on the rewind, and it really is worth a watch. It really is. Okay, so the next bit is actually, I will look at all of your comments in a second, is we're going to create this, we call it right angle weave, but I'm going to not use that word again throughout, because I feel it actually creates mental blocks for people when you start introducing terminology. People think that it's something that they cannot do. So instead I'm going to look at the method. So I'm going to bank one of the needles, and by that I mean I'm just going to pop it to one side. I'm going to actually attach the thread I'm not working with around my little pinky, like that. You do as you are comfortable. And you can use 2 needles with this, but we are not going to use 2 needles tonight. We are going to use one at a time. Keep it simple, okay? Is that what they call a surgeon's knot? Okay, we will go with that. Don't worry, that knot's going to disappear inside. So we want to do 1, 2, 3. So we're adding 3 on, and then what you want to do is you want to go back through the first one, and what you want to do is actually shimmy that along. Right, let's just stop because I've gone way off camera. So I've just added 3 beads, and I'm going to go through the middle one. But what I do before you do that, lots of do-dos, is reinforce, and that's something that the ladies were talking about last night with regards to using threads and bicones. So I'm just going back round the thread path. I will move my finger in a second so that you can see, and we're going to go through that middle one. Don't worry if you don't catch it first time round, I will be doing lots of them. So I'm just catching that thread around my little pinky. Now don't worry, there's a bit of a gap there, but that's okay because we are going to be pulling in that gap after. So we are next going to be adding 2 and going through the first bead again. So you're coming out one side and going through the other. Now I just need to make sure I've got this right, and no I haven't. Let's rewind, rewind. We're not adding 2, we're adding 3. Otherwise you're going to get a completely different look. So that's not a bad thing because you can see all my mistakes. But you know I make them often enough. One, 2, 3. So your thread is coming out this side, and to anchor it we're going to go through the other side, like so. Okay, I'm hoping I've chosen an okay colour for you to look at that. So reinforce it, so go back round the beads that you've just added, because otherwise they are a little bit floppy, and go back up until you come out of the middle one. So as you can see we've got a gap here, but that's okay, we will sort that out afterwards. And then we're going to add another 3, and you're coming out of this side, and we're going to go through the other side. So reinforce, go back round that. So you're reinforcing around 4 beads, make it, pull it, and then go through the middle one. Does that all seem okay for everybody so far? Apart from that unsightly gap there, but that's okay, we can sort that out. Add in 3, thread coming out this side, so we're going to anchor the other side. And we're going to reinforce. If it's still a bit floppy, you can still reinforce, you know, more times if you wish, and then go round until you hit the middle one. So that's coming along quite nicely. Can you all see that okay? Thread this side, anchor the other, add in 3 beads. So basically there's 4 including the one in the middle. Yep, got it, brilliant. And then pull that nice and tight. Yeah, Kim, it is easier to do with one needle. I've taught both, but I think generally it can get a little bit confusing. And also you can, what they call, split your thread as well quite easily when you've got 2 needles. Now, splitting your thread basically means that you literally do just that. You actually go through the middle of your thread and it almost creates like a knot. Now, if you're a bit worried, I know one of the questions last night in the group, in the other group, was about thread splitting whilst you're sewing. Is what you could always do is while you're reinforcing, you could tie a couple of knots as you're going. I'm just flipping that over. Now let's move that one out of the way so you haven't got lots of different things in the way. Now we've got plenty of time, so I am kind of hoping that I'm going to be able to do this from start to finish. Let's just take a little break on that. So that's where we're at the moment. You can always pop it down if you wish and do it that way if that's easier for you. Now when we finish the other end, what we will do with our second thread is we are going to add seed beads along one side, and what that allows it to do is it actually gives it the shape so that it follows the inner contours of your neck on the inside, and then the outside is a little bit more sort of fanning out. Hello Maxine, hope you're well. Right, keep going, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up in a second and just look at all of your comments, but it's coming along. I mean, please don't expect to have done it quite as quickly, because like I've mentioned before, you know, I'm just conscious I'm actually on camera, and you're always conscious, I suppose, rushing sometimes to an effect, because you're conscious that people are going to get slightly bored watching you do this, and also, you know, you don't want the live to go on and on, because you guys have only got, you know, you've got your your family time. So all I'm saying is, you know, I am rushing a little bit and there's no need to. So Kim is just saying that it definitely weakens the thread and more chance of going through the thread when you cross over, more likely for the necklace to break. Yeah, I agree. I think I do still use the method from time to time. I think it's sort of preference, but I must admit I find this quite straightforward. Now if you see your thread getting sort of lower than 4 or 5 inches, then do think about tying it off and adding in a new bit of thread. Now we will have to do that anyway, which is good because it will give you an idea as to how to do it. Hello Caroline, thank you for joining. This part makes a fab choker and a good foundation for the other designs. Absolutely. But you know, perhaps we can bounce some ideas off each other as to, you know, what else we could use it for. I'm just thinking as well that what you could do is you could actually join it, so you could have a V, so you could have one going that way, one going the other way, and actually if you've made a bead embroidery necklace or a piece of wire work, you could actually hang it from the center. That's another food for thought. Now these are Chinese bite cones, which means they are not branded. So it does mean they're not quite as perfect a shape as you would if you've got Swarovski or Czechoslovakian. But I always think, do you know what, when you're doing bigger projects like this that take up a lot of bicones, who's going to know? It's going to cost you less than half the price. If, you know, I'm not saying don't use it, but particularly if you're making to sell. So anyway, it's entirely your choice. You know, if you want something special, I absolutely adore all of the Czech crystals. I think they're amazing. Excuse me. But all I'm saying is, if you're doing a lot of them, I wouldn't worry too much about the shape. Right, so I want to tie this off and build in some new thread. So I am going to go through, thread in between, and just tie a knot. Go through the next one, tie a knot, and going underneath. It's either underneath or through the thread, whichever. And you can tell that I'm starting to run out of thread because then it starts coming off your needle quite freely. That's a really, really good point, Elaine. Elaine is saying the seed beads will make it curve. Yes, it will. So let's do that again. So would the thread take the weight if she used 10mm pearls? That is a really good question. I think I would be inclined to maybe ensure that you reinforce it really well. Fireline might be a good one to use because it you know, maybe the 8 poundage on the Fireline, which means that it's a thicker thread, that would probably work well. Or just make sure you reinforce it, and also is perhaps make the necklace part at the back a bit longer so that you don't have as many 10mm beads bringing any of the weight down. So I'm just going to go through a bicone and actually trim that off. Now I've run out of thread, but I've still got this one or the other one left, but I don't need that yet. I'm going to keep that there. So I'm going to start a new piece of thread, but this is good because it actually shows you how to actually build that in. I just think it's up to you how much thread you can work with, okay? The only problem is in working with too much thread is it gets stuck round everything and it makes it super fiddly. The downside is that you have to add more thread in. So it really is down to you. And I think when we did our live yesterday, the lovely thing is in having 3 other lovely beading ladies is the fact that it just demonstrates the fact that we've all got different ways of doing things. There's no right or wrong way. It's all, but it's getting tips from people so that you find the right one for you. So to add new thread in, I've got a tail of a couple of inches that I'm going to hold on to, and then I'm going to tie it in like I tied off in 3 to 4 places. So either thread through those threads or underneath. Would really like to hear from other bead weavers. So you're a bit like me, you do a bit of both. Sometimes I go through the middle of the thread, sometimes I go underneath it. What do you do? Would love to know. Perhaps you're not really aware of what you do until you think about it. I know there are some people that have a really complex way of adding thread in. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. It just wasn't for me, says she, making a right little mess. No, I'm back on it, back on it. So this little tail we will cut off in a second, but the main thing is that you just actually knot in a number of places. Now all of those little bits that are coming off is just the wax that I've got on the thread. So Elaine said, would it be better to use 10mm for the strand and then say 6mm for the raw part? Do you know what, I think that's a really good shout. Possibly, yes. I think you'd need to see how it sat, but it would certainly help with the weight. That would be my only thought on that. Right, let's just get a few more pearls. Now this is, we're nearly at 1 strand. So these I can't remember how much these emerald ones are, but they are in the thread, and they are really reasonable. Quite long, but I think it takes about 1.5 of them. So just carrying on as before. Right, okay, I know the Beaders Guild have got a very different way of adding the thread, which yeah, it is very different, isn't it, Nikki? And there's no right or wrong, it's just whatever you are comfortable with. But I would imagine the people from the Beaders Guild would say, no, don't add your thread like that. But I'm all for breaking rules, I'm sorry. I think whatever works for you is, you know, you've got to go with whatever works for you. The least, I just think the least faff, providing you've got strength and it's going to maintain it. You could try Tiger Tail for the weight. You might be able to use the Tiger Tail, may allow you to weave it like this, but Elaine, have a play, and would you report back into our beaders group and let us know? I can't imagine why it wouldn't work with Tiger Tail, because you've got bigger beads. It's not like you're trying to get Tiger Tail around a very small element, is it? But as anybody else, you know, whilst you're listening to this, are you visualising making it with any particular beads? Is it floating your boat? Is it got you thinking, ah, yeah, I could try that, I've got those beads? So how much have we done? Right, not enough by any means, so I'm gonna step it up a little bit. how's it all going? Are you quite happy with what you're seeing so far? I mean, I can kind of bring it to a close earlier if you'd like me to, but we're okay. We've got about 20 minutes, so that should give me ample time to finish off. So Nikki's just saying she agrees with whatever you're comfortable with, and I just like the satisfying pop when the join works. Yes, I can vaguely remember the joins that they do. It's a very fancy knot, isn't it? In the sense of it's very clever, very clever. So Nikki is thinking about a mixture of bicones and 4mm pearls. Brilliant. What I'd really like to start us doing on a weekly basis is to really share what we've learned from the tutorial, in the sense of, you know, has this given you inspiration to experiment? Perhaps if you're not comfortable with putting a picture on, is to just post a comment about, you know, what you've used and how you found it. And the other thing is as well, is if you win the giveaway, in the kindest possible way, I'm just asking everybody to please either post a picture of you receiving it, i.e., you know, all of the product that you've won or the beads, a photograph of it to show that you've received it, or you wearing it if you've won something, or what you've made from it. So, you know, moving forward, I'd really like, if you've been a giveaway winner, to share that. And Maxine, you're an absolute love. Thank you so much for sharing those pictures. Now Maxine won 2 giveaways. Now I think there was a month's worth of giveaway winners, because I'd had lots going on. I was teaching at Marlborough, so she won one of those, and then she won one recently as well. So thank you so much for sharing it, because as well, if people are quite new to the group, it also just shows the fact that it's not, you know, sometimes people say, oh, there's a giveaway, and people never get it. And, you know, the giveaway is there to give some inspiration, even if it's a piece. And I will not take offence if the piece you take apart and don't wear, that's cool too. Linda said that would be nice, Nikki. Yes, I agree, that would be fab. Hope you'll share a picture. Elaine said, I've just got the hang of the Beaders Guild knot. It kept slipping. A fellow member had to show me umpteen times. Well, it's not easy though, is it? I mean, I can't even remember how to do it. Perhaps I will, when we do our Q&A, our monthly Q&A, maybe I can look it up and we can demonstrate it. Oh, you're very welcome, Maxine. I'm so pleased you enjoyed receiving. Right, so as you can see, it's not a slow project, but it's not super slow. Right, we might be going for the choker, but no, let's keep with it. Are you everybody's still okay? Because at the end of the day, you know, if you get a bit bored and you want to see the last part, you can always shimmy along and have a look after. But it's always lovely having you join. You know, I know some people can do pre-recorded, but it's not the same, because you don't get that same connection to a screen. If you know what I mean. It's, you know, we're having a chat and I'm getting in a mess because I'm rushing. have I done here? Right, let's take the needle off. If in doubt, take your needle off. There we go. How would you make a V shape? Do you know what? If you are interested in a V shape, let me know, and if I get enough of you interested, I'll do one next week with different types of beads, so that we can have a look at how you can connect it as a V, and how can you connect it with a piece of wire work or something like that that you've done. So if it sounds like the sort of thing you'd like to see, let me know. So Maxine is saying she's away for a few days next week, so we'll take the bicones with me to do this. Fabulous. That's brilliant. Now that does remind me, there's not next week but the week after, there won't be a Thursday tutorial time because one of my family members is going into hospital, and I'm going to be away to be with them. So I will be around, if that makes sense, but I'm going to be away from home, and they're having their operation on that day. But what I might do, I might either pre-record something, which I know isn't quite the same, or we will actually put something up, a historical one that you can have a little watch of. So Elaine says she's definitely interested in a V shape, especially done with pearls, as I have loads of them. Yeah, good shout. A V shape would make a nice change. Fantastic. Underneath, so Meg is saying underneath the thread and then twice through the centre for a surgeon's knot. Do you mean for tying in new thread? Have I understood that correctly? How are we doing for time? 10 minutes. I need to start wrapping this up. V shape would be good, as it will build on the tutorial. Fantastic. And I will very much enjoy doing that. Do you know, the other thing that I'm thinking that's going around in my mind as we're speaking is that you could possibly double it as well, so that you could have another weave there as well. Right, where does that come? There, there. Right, I think we're going to go for a choker on this one, but let's just add a couple more. Now we might be just about a few minutes over. Is that going to be okay with everybody? I just think for me it's a lot easier for me to do it all in real time, and sometimes if you're doing it yourself it might be easier to do it real time with me when you're ready, if that makes sense. Hello Valerie, or Val, not Valerie. I'm presuming you prefer to be known as Val. Hello Val, thank you for joining. V shape with pearls would be good, double would be good. Haven't done it yet, but in my mind I can see how it's done, if that makes sense. Time wise, okay. Okay, I don't think I need that many more, to be honest. No, we'll do it as a choker. Right, so what you do is you finish on a 2, if that makes sense. Finish on a 2 like so, reinforce it, and then we are going to actually add the same amount of beads as this side. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 25. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 19, 20, 21, 2, 3, come on, 3, 4, 5. Let's just do a quick check. If we go over, somebody else might do the dishes. Yeah. How is everyone on this hot day? Oh, I think we're all right. Thank you, Val. How are you? So, we're reversing the process. Okay. Bearing in mind at the moment we are single thread wise, but I think what I'm going to do is just bank that before we use the culotte. I'm sorry, I know I'm sidetracking a little bit, but I'm just thinking that it's going to be easier if we just don't do anything with that side for now. So we've got the 25 beads on there and I'm just going to bank it. So I'm just going to reinforce with this other thread. So I'm picking up the other thread and I'm just going to reinforce around that because it is, I just want to clear up that gap. Oops. Now, sorry, you can't even see what I'm doing. It would help, wouldn't it? There we go. No problem, Francis. Thank you for joining. And I'm using size 8 seed beads. You might need to vary it if you're using a different size of bead, you know, like 10 mils for example. So we're going to add a seed bead and go through the next one, like so. Add a seed bead and go through the next one. Okay, so we're doing that all the way along just one of the sides, and what that does is it pulls in those gaps on the one side. So this is going to follow the curve of the neck. Oh gosh, Val has broken her ankle. Oh dear, what is that? Is that recent? Is that today or recently, Val? Nikki said her house is 8 degrees cooler than outside. It's definitely cooler indoors, isn't it? Yes, absolutely. Get well soon. Right, so this bit's super quick. But this feels so nice. I've decided that I need to use bigger crystals for myself. Absolutely. And you know, I think the 6mm fire polish that I've got in the group, I think those would work as well. Just bear in mind you're not going to need as many. I know they come in shorter strands, but you really won't need quite as many of them, because obviously they're going to be taking up a bigger space. So doesn't that edge it nice? So obviously if you were to do a bracelet, you'd want seed beads either side because you'd want flat edges both sides. Oh, sorry. I'm getting so carried away, I didn't even notice that I'm not even on screen. This bit is super quick. Right. So I'm just going to reinforce this as well around the last one. Okay. Now I've made a boo-boo down here. Have I made a boo-boo? No, that's okay. There we go. So we are going to thread this up through those bicones as well, and then we've got at least double thread to go through the culottes. How many strands are needed for the necklace? Now the mixed, now let me think, 18, bear with me whilst I just work it out. You're going to need about 25 inches of 4mm. So for the green you'd need 2. For the crystal rondelles, the mixed one, you'd need 2 of those as well. Now I am just going to tie a knot for these together before they go up through the culotte. So we're going to reverse it, so we're going to go through the bottom hole of the culotte, so hopefully you can see that. Okay, and then I'm going to pop a crimp bead on, whoops, pop a crimp bead on, get your pliers, make sure you've got a nice tension on it, and squeeze that crimp bead. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the crimp bead in there, and I'm going to bring my needles back down so that I can actually do some tying off. There we go. And we're going to close up that. Whoopsie. And what I'd be inclined to do is to actually thread both needles down in blocks, like every 2-3 beads, and tie them together. Just makes it easier, like so. I'll just do it once more. Would help if you could see what I'm doing. So Val said that she broke her ankle in May. It's not healing. Got a lovely husband who's looking after me well. Thank you for everybody's good well wishes. Oh, that's a long time, isn't it? That must be so frustrating. Right, we're nearly there. All we've got to do now is just add on the clasp. just tie that off again. And obviously if you feel it needs a little bit more reinforcing, you can carry on a bit further down if you wish. Didn't want to do that. Right. Obviously not as quickly as I'm doing, take your time. Okay, so let's cut that off, and then we just need to add the jump rings and the clasp and the extender. So I've got 2 sets of pliers, 2 chain nose I've got. You can have a flat nose and a chain nose if you prefer, or a combination. So the 12 o'clock is where the slit sits in the jump ring. So you do a side-by-side action like and leave a door. Okay, I normally give it a squeeze over the top of the join. And close that up. It's really important as well that you use thick jump rings with the culottes. I'm just getting up to actually show you what it looks like on a bustier. It's really important that you use thick jump rings to go with your culottes, because the culottes can sometimes be quite fine metal that will find its way to come free, if that makes sense. So there we are. Excuse the state of the bustier. So that is the emerald bicones. I think they are about 18-inch strands. So I've used one, and the second one, I've got that much left of the second one. So you could probably use that to maybe make some matching earrings in the right angle weave. So there you go. I wonder what length that comes out of. Is it going to choke me or not? So let me know, how did you find that? Do you feel comfortable to give that a go? Actually, that's not a bad length. Right. That's not a bad length, is it? That's quite doable. There we go. So for this week's giveaway, I will probably do a bit more reinforcing on it, but I'm going to give that away to this week's giveaway winner this week. I go this side and that side because you've got a mirror image on screen, which is super confusing. So there you go, or you can cut it up and use the beads, entirely up to you. Hope you liked it. Next week then we will do the V, so I'll come up with a pattern that joins it and how we can actually look at using it for using with a bead embroidery piece or something like that. I'll give this a go probably next week. Keep fiddling, stop fiddling. That was good, thank you. So pleased you enjoyed. I would have to make sure that that sat right, but it is such a nice little pattern, and the multicoloured one, I am going to wear that lots because it would go with everything. Anyways, thanks for joining me, take care, and if you missed it, don't forget, hop on over to Beaders of Beads by Virchil and do watch our 3 lovely ladies with their first live last night and get to know them a little bit better. Take care everyone, bye.